Hello, my name is Brian Plant.
And I'm Chelsea Van Boning.
And we are two licensed practical nurses. And we are here today to introduce to you our idea of fingerprint-activated electronic medical records.
On the agenda today is to talk to you about the current system of password-protected electronic medical records and some of the problems that we've noticed are associated with that type of security, such as the ability to steal passwords, the environment that it creates for defamation of character, and inappropriate curiosity among facility personnel. After that, we'll talk to you about our solution, which is fingerprint-activated electronic medical records and how those can be useful in patient charting. And I'll also go over the budget that you would need in order to implement this within your medical facility. After that, we'll summarize everything for you and we'll allow for some questions.
We have noticed that password-protected electronic medical records within the medical field leave charts open to several possible problems, and those are what we would like to discuss today.
The first and potentially most major problem is the ability of stolen passwords. It's not very hard for somebody to look over your shoulder as you're typing in your password and steal that. And not only does that mean that they now have access to medical records that they shouldn't, but it means they also have the ability to change medical records under your name. So this means that an inappropriate person can steal your password, go into a medical record, and change medications that you've given, or change treatments that you've done, or change vital information about that patient that would change their medical treatment. I have a quote here from Susan Westrick and from Catherine Debsky. They're both registered nurses. The quote is, "The greatest threat to the integrity of an electronic health record and charting system is inappropriate entry by someone from within the organization who has stolen passwords by observing users' keystroke entry, or who has copied private files onto a portable disk or storage device and carried them out of a facility or office."
The next thing we're going to talk about is defamation of character. And the first thing that I'm going to touch on is what that actually entails. Defamation of character is when you obtain private information on somebody, say your neighbor, and you spread that information around town. Medical information can be very private and incriminating, and you just don't really want other people to know what is going on in your life in terms of your health. I have a quote from Christopher P. Ryan, and he states that many invasion of privacy cases involve the dissemination of private medical record information. For example, someone with access to private medical information may reveal that someone carries a sexually transmitted disease. The person spreading that information is violating your right of privacy. So you can only imagine, if you were to actually have a sexually transmitted disease, how hard it would be if that was spread around town due to improper sign-on to electronic medical records.
The next problem that we've associated with password-protected electronic medical records that could be solved with fingerprint-activated electronic medical records is inappropriate curiosity. There's one real case in Bennington, Vermont, in which an ultrasound technician used her ability to obtain medical records and used it to look at her ex-husband's new wife medical information out of what she called morbid curiosity. If fingerprint-activated electronic medical records were in place, you could set it up so that somebody, say, in an ultrasound unit could not have information to other units, such as a med-surg unit or an obstetrics unit, and it would not allow for this to happen in the first place. And we got this information from the Rutland Herald. This woman was ultimately fired from her job and had several fines.
So our solution to these problems is to implement fingerprint-activated electronic medical records. With that, there would be no passwords to steal. You would need your own fingerprint to log on to obtain the information that is stored within an electronic medical record system. This would increase the medical record security from the violators outside of the facility. And with that would come increased patient comfort and satisfaction. There would also be fewer cases of inappropriate access to electronic medical records.
Next, we have a picture of what's called a Pyxis machine. And for those of you not in the medical field, this machine stores medications. And how it stores those securely is by requiring a fingerprint. Medications are often very important to have stored securely. There's narcotics there, there's things like insulin, things that could be very damaging if they got into the wrong hands. So hospitals across the country have bought these machines to protect those medications. And we're essentially suggesting that we use the same type of software for fingerprint-activated electronic medical records so that electronic medical records are just as secure as medications are.
This is an example of a laptop that we would be using to implement our idea. And it is basically just a general laptop, but in the bottom right portion of it, there is an area where you would be using your finger to activate the electronic medical records.
So the budget that we've come up with that would cost to implement this type of security system is roughly how much it would cost for a facility to do this. First, the facility would need the software. Like I said, with the Pyxis machine, that type of software we've estimated would cost about $10,000 for one facility. There would also be the need to get new hardware. You'd need those scanners actually put onto your laptops and your desktop computers. We've estimated that that would cost roughly $30,000. Next, it would cost money for an educator to be trained so that that person could then spread that knowledge throughout the facility about how to use these new electronic medical records. We've estimated that that might cost about $10,000 to train someone. Once that person has been trained, they then need to go back to their facility and train the rest of the employees, specifically the nurses and physicians. And in order to do that, the training would cost about $10,000 just to train those personnel. We've also estimated that it would probably be necessary to have technical support for about a year until everybody was comfortable with this new system and all the kinks had been worked out. We estimated that about $35,000 would be needed for a salary for a technician. On top of that, just some of the logistical things that come into play, like wiring and surge protectors, would also be needed. We estimated that about $5,000 would be required. So overall, for this whole system to be implemented into a facility, about $100,000 would be needed.
So in conclusion, there would be no passwords that would be required to access the electronic medical records. This would mean that we have the most up-to-date and the most secure software available. And this would increase patient satisfaction. They would feel more secure coming to our facility knowing that their private medical information was in this most up-to-date and secure system. And of course, overall, there'd be an increase in the medical record security.
And now if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to us. Thank you very much. We appreciate you listening.